For all of you is, what games are you guys playing right now? Because I'm looking for something new to play. Let me know in the comment section down below that like button. And if you scroll through those comments and you see somebody recommending a game that you either agree with or you're going to add to your wish list, make sure you like their comment so it gets kind of pushed up higher. With that being said, let's get out of the intro and on to the actual news. And I want to start with this article from WCCF Tech. They say Steam Machine is close to release as system was added to official Vulkan 1.4 conformant products with more specs and details. And as I scroll down here, it says, while the addition of the Steam Machine to the official Vulkan conformant products database may suggest the system's launch could be imminent, this inclusion does not indicate precisely when it will launch. However, the addition of the database is one of the final steps that precedes the launch of new hardware, so Valve is definitely gearing up to launch. I think that we all know that Valve is gearing up to launch. The fact that we keep seeing shipments come in, like sadly it's Bradley will post when there's new shipments coming in, and Valve is accepting these roughly 20,000 unit shipments of the Steam Machine over and over again as they're trying to build up inventory for the release day. I think that it's safe to say that launch is any day now. However, I saw a lot of people talking over on like the Steam Machine subreddit, and they were saying things like they expected it to be like a surprise announcement on this day. Here's what I don't agree with there. I don't think that we're going to be surprised. And here's why I don't think that we're going to be surprised. Look at the launch of the Steam controller. When Valve launched the Steam controller, if you can get one, then what we saw right before that launch was reviews. And I'm not talking about channels like mine. My channel is a tiny little insignificant channel on the internet that very few people watch. And I'm very grateful that all of you decide to tune in when I post something and decide to ramble into a microphone. I'm talking about the big guns, the channels that are like MKBHD, LTT, Dave 2D, Gamers Nexus. These are the channels that you watch for when something is going to happen, because they always get this stuff early. For example, with the Steam controller, all of those channels that I just mentioned, they had the Steam controller for weeks. And then they all launched their videos on the same day. And then like a day or two after that, that's when Valve updated the website so that you could say, oh, this is the day that you're actually going to be able to pre-order this thing. I think that that's going to happen again with the Steam Machine. So because we have yet to see full reviews from those channels that I was talking about, I don't think that Valve is going to surprise us with when it comes out. I think that that's going to be our big signal for when we're going to start seeing things, is going to be when those channels drop the reviews. And then a couple of days later, Valve will update the website. But what this article is talking about is this post over at the Kronos Group, which shows that the AMD Steam Machine, and you might be thinking, okay, AMD Steam Machine, are they making an Intel Steam Machine? No, I don't think so. But they basically are just listing who's making the chipset that they are actually looking at. And the GPU of the Steam Machine is an AMD GPU. So that's why that says AMD there. The other thing that I think is important is obviously this is Steam Machine because A, it says machine right there, but B, it's AMD, and the chip that's in the Steam frame is a Qualcomm chip. But basically what this is showing us is that we now have the official drivers for Mesa and RADV for the chipset that's in the Steam Machine. And I think that that is a good indicator that we are very close to release. So I think that we're going to be seeing Dave 2D and LTT and the others all start dropping their reviews for this device very, very soon. Next, I want to talk about the price of the Steam Machine. How much is this thing going to cost? When the Steam Machine was first announced, a lot of people were making guesses as to how much it was going to cost. I guessed that it was going to cost $650. Now, since then, the Rampocalypse happened, and I'm going to take a second to remind all of you about my Parody merch store where you can get your Rampocalypse shirt and to show everybody that you lived through the Rampocalypse by showing them this awesome shirt. I also have 3 brand new designs: He Doesn't Like You, DRM, and Schrodinger's Console. So if you want to support the channel and get cool shirts as well, links down below. Moving on, I saw this article over at Vice. It says the Steam Machine price may have leaked and it's over $1,000. And then immediately I saw a bunch of people talking about the price of the Steam Machine being over $1,000 as if this article is gospel and it's, absolutely known at this point. No, you got to read the article. Let's scroll down, and there's a very important piece of information in here. It says a small update in the source code chunk containing the hardware reservation system indicates that they have prepared the system for hardware that requires thousands of euros. And then there's a screenshot from Reddit, and basically somebody was looking into the source code and they saw line 1391. It says str decimal symbol and a comma. Okay. Immediately I saw people talking about this, and they were saying if it contains a comma, then it must be over 999, because anything over 999 would then require a thousandths place. And if it requires a thousandths place, then we put a comma between those two. And we don't use commas in our numbers other than that. Except, yes, we do, unless we're American, because over in Europe, where they have euros, they don't use the decimal and the comma the same way that we do. They separate their ones place and their tenths place with a comma, where we usually will use a decimal. And when you look at this, it says decimal symbol. Well, if the decimal symbol is a comma, then that's telling me that comma goes after the price. Where, for example, let's say it was $750, which is the price that I think it's going to be since the Rampocalypse hit us. So $750 would be 749, comma 99. So they don't use commas the same way. So that's one of the reasons that I think that it's ridiculous to think that the price of the Steam Machine is going to be over $1,000. And then people are going to say, but Bill, what about the thousands separator in line 1392? And I get what you're saying. It says thousand separator. Why would they have a thousand separator if the number doesn't go over 1,000, right? That logic kind of makes sense. But when I kept thinking about it and I kept thinking about it, I finally figured it out. There's plenty of countries where their currency is in much smaller denominations. Like, for instance, the yen. Things cost thousands upon thousands of yen, and they're like not that expensive. That's because the yen is a small denomination. So maybe their store is built in such a way, and if I were making a store, I would probably do it this way. But maybe their store is built in such a way that they always have these strings every single time. Now, I didn't go through the source code myself, so I can't verify that, but that's what my gut tells me. I think that this means that just they always do it this way so that the store works in a consistent way all the time. So the fact that there's a comma and the fact that there's a thousand separator does not mean that the price of the Steam Machine is going to be over $1,000. Is it going to be more expensive than you would like? Yeah, it's going to be more expensive than I would like. It's going to be more expensive than Valve would like, and that's because of the Rampocalypse. I think that it's going to be not that expensive. And the real reason why I think it's going to be not that expensive, it's not that powerful. It's as powerful as 6 Steam Decks. The Steam Deck is not a powerful piece of hardware. Can it play most of the games that you want to play? Absolutely. Is it going to be great as a 1080p system? Hell yes. But it's not the powerhouse that people are talking about all of the time. In fact, I saw that article where Mike Ybarra was basically, he's a former Xbox executive, and he said that he thought that PlayStation was changing everything because of Valve's Steam Machine. And maybe that's true, but I don't think the Steam Machine goes head to head with the PS6 when the PS6 comes out. The Steam Machine is a device that people are misunderstanding so intently. And here's why I think they're misunderstanding it. They're thinking of it like a console. While yes, it is a console, it is also a PC, and that gives it certain advantages that regular consoles don't have. When a console comes out, if not enough people buy it, then third party developers decide that they're not going to support it. And that is the death of that console. So when people look at the price of the Steam machine, they are always talking about, oh, it's DOA at this price, whatever that price may be. And what those people fail to understand is that Valve would define success very differently than Sony would. Sony would define success as selling a certain number of devices. I think that Valve would define success as having sold all of the devices that they made, and so that they don't have any sitting on the shelf. They don't need to sell hundreds of millions of the Steam machine in order for the Steam machine to be a success for Valve, because no matter what happens, these third-party companies are going to continue to make games that will play on this system, whether they are intending to or not, because it just plays PC games.
Check how far the controller can go without disconnecting. All right. There to here. So I made a community post where you guys could ask all the questions you wanted to ask about the new Steam controller from Valve. Does the controller replace the need for a mouse and keyboard? How useful is the new GripSense feature? Is the $100 price tag justified? And many, many more. So we're
What's up?